Hello, and you're very welcome to another edition of the GMO Podcast. I'm John Mann, and of course, this podcast is sponsored by OrgaRetro.com. Check the website out for all your retro gear needs and wants. And today, I'm joined by Kevin McGurty and Daniel Goulding to discuss this weekend's actions and all that goes with it. So, really looking forward to the round 2 of the Allianz Football League this weekend. So, I'll start off with yourself, Daniel. How are you keeping?
All good, thank you. Enjoying the lovely weather here in Cork. Bucketing rain with 24 hours solid.
Happy days. And what's the weather like in Edinburgh, Kev?
It's pretty similar, no golf course today, unfortunately. So just inside and looking forward to previewing this weekend. So a couple of lovely mouth-watering contests about to come up. So round 2, let's get going.
Yeah, absolutely. We cannot wait. So we can crack into Division 1. We've Donegal against Monaghan, Armagh against Tyrone, Dublin versus Kerry, and Galway versus Roscommon. So we can start off with the first game there, Donegal v Monaghan, and a good win for Donegal last weekend, and obviously Monaghan were bet. But Daniel, Donegal going in with confidence, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. They looked impressive again now last weekend. Good tough game, in fairness, Tyrone. And themselves, no matter if it's league, a challenge game, I'd say you're going to get the same crazy battle and intensity every game. And I think Donegal kind of barred the slip against Cavan last year, have kind of picked up where they left off.
Yeah, definitely. And what about yourself, Kev? It's an all-Ulster battle, so one we're looking forward to.
Yeah, obviously up in Ballybuffet, and it's right, Donegal maybe looking to build a good win last weekend against Tyrone. It'll be interesting to see if they make many changes for this game. Declan's, I suppose we talked about this some weeks before, Declan's under real pressure. So Donegal will be looking to maybe get a very, very good league campaign under the belt. That means 3 wins. They went to Tyrone last weekend. I actually tipped Tyrone, but in fairness, again, Donegal, a big player, stepped up. Murphy, good to see McBurdy back to a bit of his old self. Obviously, McGee's still in there in the defence. They're strong right up through. So, I'm going to go for Donegal in this one, if I'm honest with you, John. I just think that, they've a lot still riding on last year. They've started off well this year. Good determination. And Monaghan didn't really kick in last week against Armagh until maybe 20 minutes gone. And I don't think if they get a start like that up in Ballybuffet, they'll be in a game at all. So, I'm expecting Donegal to win this. And win it by 3, 4, 5 points.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably the outgoing emotion. And what about yourself, Daniel, if you were to call it?
Yeah, I think so too. I'd say 3 or 4 points. I think for Donegal, I just think, look, they're obviously well tuned in from last year, even following on, and I think that they're a few years ahead of Armagh in terms of their development. I think they're a team that's looking to challenge for All Ireland's now, and I think Armagh are just coming up into Division 1 and with a good win last weekend. I think they'll put it up to Donegal, but I think Donegal, if they have their strongest team out, will just have a bit too much of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Armagh against Tyrone and all Ulster clash once again, and Kieran McGeeney's Armagh looking to make an impression again, and obviously Brian Dewar looking for that elusive first win. So Daniel, what would you be thinking for that one?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one again. Sorry, I said Armagh in the last one. Apologies.
You're grand. No bother.
Apologies. Yeah, look, they were impressive again last week, and I think the one thing Kieran McGeeney, he has his team very organised, and you could see, I think they were even a small bit more organised than Monaghan, and that was half the battle going into that game. And I think it could be a similar game again. I think they're kind of going well at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about yourself, Kev? Big game.
Yeah, well, the first things first is Croke Park, apparently, when this fixture came out, are crying their eyes out because there's no fans allowed in. This is a money-spending game, 2 well looked after counties here, Saturday night game. This could be boxing on the pitch. It could have been boxing in the stand. Again, Daniel, if you haven't never got up to one of these games, you want to get up. The breed of people is totally different here, something unique and different with these guys. But obviously, given the dynamics coming into the game, Daniel's 100% right about Armagh. Kieran will have them well organised. As I said to you a couple of weeks back, They were always going to go into the Monaghan game with that, back up in the Division 1, the aggression that they have, how they're set up. They have good players going forward, Armagh, really good in terms of two O'Neills, Aidan Fucker up there and Rory Grugan. The problem with Armagh is, will they concede a lot? That's always been their issue. They went 5 points in front against Monaghan. Monaghan dragged it back last week, so you would have slight worries about Armagh. Tyrone, on the other hand, yep, they had a defeat last weekend. They shot 12 wides. I don't think there's panic buttons being pushed up there just yet with the new management. Interesting to see what formation he goes with, where he plays Matty Donnelly, where he plays PD Hart, these guys. So it's a really, really interesting game. And by the way, it's only 2 games into the league, but it's a hell of a big game for Tyrone. They're coming off a defeat, another defeat against Armagh. The next thing is they're facing relegation, and people up in Tyrone wouldn't like that at all. So, do you know what? I'm going to stick my neck in the line. I'm going to say Tyrone are going to go bold here. Maybe young Dara Canavan, maybe get a bigger run out this time around. Tyrone back a couple of points for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And massive game on Sunday, Dublin against Kerry. Really looking forward to that game to see if David Clifford can produce the goods for the Kingdom once again, and what way it's all going to work out. So, Kevin, an absolute humdinger.
It would be if Joey the Lips from the Commitments wasn't refereeing it, Sean Hurston. That's what they call him up here. It was at a Tyrone match a couple of years ago when a Tyrone championship game and a boy came out and was like, how did the club do? He says, we were beat by Joey the Lips. He's whistle happy, Sean, and, I'd rather have seen somebody like maybe David Goff in refereeing that game, or maybe even actually Paul Falloon from Down, who's a really good up-and-coming referee. So, it's a big game. It's a bigger game for Kerry than it is for Dublin. Let's just say that. Dublin will probably go with the same team as they did last week. They'll probably give them guys, the 4 new guys they brought in, plus the likes of Cormac Costello, another run out. Obviously, the game's down the country in thirds. Kerry still, yes, an impressive win last week, but still really reaping from the way they went out of the championship last year. The biggest thing for me in this game will not be about attack. It'll be how Kerry's defence tries to cope with this Dublin attack. That's the big thing I'm looking out of this game. I've said this before, I'm a massive Kerry fan. Sorry, Daniel, but it's Kerry, as much as they have everything they have in their armour up front, what they're lacking is the defence, and that might be as big an issue for them this year when the All-Ireland as misfiring up front. So, big thing for me is, can the Kerry defence cope with this Dublin attack? I'm still going to go for a Dublin win. Yeah.
And are you telling me David Goff would like to be refereeing this one in front of the cameras, Kevin?
A man once said about David Goff, he went in the bad caravan, and his first question was, is there a mirror in the caravan, So, I would say so.
and Daniel, yourself, Dublin against Kerry?
Yeah, look, the one thing I'd question with Kerry here is, will there be a bit of shadow boxing? I think last year Kerry got caught planning for Dublin against Cork, dropping so many men behind the ball and playing their backs in the forwards because, as Kevin said, they're afraid of conceding. But I'd love to see Kerry come out with their full team and go toe to toe with them. I'm not sure will they hold for the summer for that, for the championship if they do meet. It's going to be an interesting one. Dublin probably will just go what Dublin do. They'll just play the same they always do. They don't really deviate too much. They're extremely comfortable with their new lads coming in, just fit into the system they have. Whereas I think it's going to be interesting to see, will Peter Keane now drop in behind the ball, or will he just go toe-to-toe with them? If he goes toe-to-toe with them, it could be an absolute great game. And I think the only way to beat Dublin is to go at them and meet them head on. I think kind of waiting to see what Dublin are going to do just doesn't work. Dublin are too good for that. So Kerry nearly beat them 2 years ago in the All-Ireland final, going toe-to-toe with them, and that's the way they'll have to go again. If they do, and they're gung-ho to win the game, I think they can beat Dublin, given Dublin are kind of, I suppose, focusing a couple of months down the line. But it all depends whether Peter Keane is going to kind of release the hounds or just kind of stay hiding for another bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And
John, can I say something else about the game? I maybe should have mentioned earlier. It's a bit of a pity it's on a Saturday afternoon at 1:45.
Sunday.
I mean,
Sunday.
Is it Sunday?
Sunday, yeah.
Sunday. Sorry, my apologies. Even at 1:45, maybe at 3 o'clock if it's better there. I understand TV times and stuff, but this is the one game I think everybody in the country wants to see. You know, and maybe Saturday evening game back in Thurles. Memories of Maurice Fitzgerald swinging that boot back in the day would have been, coming back into mind. But I think some of the timings for the games, I understand the GA is trying to fit in the time schedule, but, maybe back-to-back games like Armagh and Tyrone at 5 o'clock, followed by that game at 7. That'd be great for the country, given the fact that people can't get into matches at the minute. So maybe a wee bit more thought about timings is important as well.
Yeah. And are you telling me you would have liked to have it on a Saturday so you could have a few beers on the Saturday, Kevin?
Well, look, the pubs are. I wouldn't be one for beers or anything. I'm more of a water man myself. But look. This is the one thing people have got going for them. The golf's on this weekend. You might have football games on across the soccer games on across the country. But yeah, let's try and look at how we can help the economy with these sort of games as well, and getting people into pubs to watch these types of games.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel, if you were to call it, who'd you be thinking?
I'd go for Kerry if they're fully intent on winning the game, but if there's a bit of shadow boxing going on, I think the Dubs will be comfortable.
Absolutely. And the next game, the final game of the weekend, is Galway and Roscommon, and probably a must-win for Pádraic Joyce's Galway. Daniel, who are you tipping in that one?
Yeah, it's I was impressed enough with Roscommon in the first half against Dublin the last day. They missed a couple of goal chances, but I thought they played some very good football. They looked dangerous up front. Whereas in contrast, I think Galway at the back were just not at the races at all. There's giving forward space and there's not marking forwards. So, I know it seems to be Pádraic Joyce wants his team to play total football, but I still think there was a reason why before he was there that they were so defensive, is that they needed to be at the back, because I think they're not defensively, they're not that sound. So I think they'll have to go back into their shell a bit. I know they've got very good forwards, but I think they're going to have to go a bit more defensive, or else Roscommon are going to beat them, I think.
Okay. And what about yourself, Kevin? Galway against Roscommon?
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Daniel's just said there, especially around Galway and the system that they have. Fair play to Pádraic Joyce for thinking that they could play total football, but unfortunately it just ain't going to work. Not at the minute against the likes of Kerry, possibly Donegal, and definitely against Dublin. So anticipation for the game against Galway, maybe change the system a bit, shore up that back line, because it was gaping wide. It was like a lady of the night's legs last weekend. It was absolutely horrible, and up front, they do have good assets in Comer and in
it's going to be edited.
In Damien Comer and Shane Walsh, they do have great assets, but you can score as much as you want, but if your defence is leaky, then you've got big issues. So look, there's no bigger game in the National Football League this weekend for any other county other than Galway. Galway have to perform this weekend. They're at home. They need to rescue their season a wee bit. Something like that can have a real psychological effect on boys. So a big reaction needed. It's a short turnaround time. And as I said to you before about Roscommon, Pritchard's going to make them very, very, very competitive. He's regimental. He's almost like an army sergeant. I've seen him in operation. Guys will know where they got to be. He will make this Roscommon team ultra competitive and ultra fit. And then obviously what Anthony Cunningham brings in. So it's going to be really interesting to see them when he's maybe 6 or 7 weeks down the line with this team. They're going to be very hard to beat and break down. Do you know what? I'm going to go rogue here. I'm going to go for a Roscommon win.
Jesus, Kevin McGarty going rogue. Oh my God. Division 2, Westmeath v Mayo, Laois v Cork, Kildare v Clare, and Down versus Meath. Westmeath v Mayo, Kevin McGarty, how do you fix that one?
Yeah, again, as I said to you the other night with Conor Gormley, listen, Mayo shouldn't be in this league. They're too strong for everybody in the league. They've opened up the league well. They've scored 23 times on the scoreboard last weekend, 221 they got. They're good going forward. As I say, it's time for new boys to step up to the mark after the last 4 or 5 retirements over the summer. They have to go to Westmeath, I think, this weekend, so that would be a hard enough task. Westmeath are really good. As I said to you, John Hassan is as good as footballers around the country. Jared Egan will always try hard, but for me, Mayo have far too much in their armour here. It's going to be a 7 or 8 point win for Mayo.
Absolutely. And yourself, Daniel?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they haven't dropped off from last year at all. And like we all know how good Mayo are using disappointments to get going the next year. They've it down to fine art, and they have a couple of lads there, like Tommy Conroy, probably disappointed how the final went from last year and has rebounded straight away already. And I just think they have the bit of class up front. They'll have too much for Westmeath.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably the general opinion on that. And Laois versus Cork. No better man to ask Daniel Goodwin, what way the Cork footballers fixed for this game?
Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of it is going to depend on the team they name. I'm not sure if Luke Connolly and Mark Collins are back, but if they're not, it's going to be a tight game. I think Cork are lacking a bit of firepower up front at the moment. They're finding scores hard to come by. And I suppose it's a do or die game for both teams. You're looking at potentially relegation in semi-final if you lose. So yeah, look, it's going to be interesting. Colin Manny was impressive enough in fits and starts the last day for his debut, and Cork had a good few debuts. So look, you'd be hoping they'd improve and they'll use the disappointment of the Kildare game to get over the line here. But I wouldn't underestimate the loss that Luke Connolly and Mark Collins are. They're huge losses. So look, from a Cork point of view, I think they need to get scores early, get settled down into the game, and not concede simple goals like they did the last day. The goals that they conceded the last day can't happen at this level. So look, I'm Cork man. I'd say Cork will take it by 2 or 3 points, but if they play like they did in the second half of the Kildare game, it's Laois will take it. But I'll go with Cork.
Absolutely. And just to kind of get your perspective on last weekend as well, Daniel, what did you make of the Kildare game, and where did it go wrong for Cork?
Look, as I said, I think that they missed chances in the first half. Took the wrong option a lot of time, and when a team is, say, kind of trying a lot of new lads or maybe lacking a bit of confidence, those kind of balls dropping short and kind of kicks, pot shots that weren't done going wide, they kill a team's confidence. And you could see as the half went on, Cork's confidence drained, and Kildare got into the game and got some great scores just before half time and kind of really took over, and Cork went out of it in midfield then. And I think Cork at the moment are really missing a kind of a playmaking 11. Cork can break out defence fast, but the minute it gets the Cork half forward line, everything seems to break down. They seem to be going over and back across the field on the 45 and run out of ideas and get turned over and get caught in the break then, similar to what happened against Tip last year. So, look, I suppose Mark Collins and Luke Connolly maybe could play that 11 role when they're back fit, but I don't know, I think not having a kind of a good 11 is kind of a big hindrance at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about yourself, Kevin? Laois v Cork?
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear Daniel's perspective because, as you know, I've been very quite critical of Cork over the last 3-4 weeks in terms of, the preparations coming into the league, but also the way they capitulated really last week to Kildare down in Cork. I suppose that's quite surprising for proud Cork people like Daniel. And he's 100% right. The 2 goals they conceded were horrific. Let's be honest, absolutely horrific. And, we want to see a strong Cork. These are the games that are going to test them. As I said to you last weekend, Laois went down to Clare with a really strong team as 2 Kingstons. I named them Begley, John O'Loughlin. They're going to be hard to break down. Michael Quirk's going to be on their back here after getting beat by Clare. So Cork aren't going to have it easy at all. They're going to have to travel up there. And this is the sort of game that we're going to start to see the development of Cork in terms of coming again as a great force. They're coming up a league, yes. But these are the hard games where you have to travel up to somewhere after the defeat. Travelling up to Laois isn't easy. And, personally, I want to see a strong Cork. But whether or not we're going to get it this Saturday evening, I'm not sure. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say Cork to win a tight tussle by a point or 2.
Yeah, perfect. And an intriguing battle here. Kildare v Clare, probably one of the games of the weekend, I think. Kevin, what's the verdict on that one?
Well, again, if we want to see the development of Kildare, it's a must-win for Kildare. They've really got a good result down in Cork. Many people, including myself, didn't tip them to get that. Jackson, year 2. He's starting to know his best 15. He's now coming back into Newbridge this weekend. Got to back up a good result with a good result. Kildare have ambitions to be in Division 1. This is how they do it. No inconsistency. Back up a good result with a good result. They're not going to get it easy at all. Clare are a very competitive team. As I said to you, they've been punching above their weight for a long time, but there's a reason why they're doing that. They have a system. They have guys that are buying into that system, and now they've brought a wee bit of flair there with Owen Cleary kicking 10 points. So likes of him and other people like that coming in. Kildare aren't going to get it easy, but listen, I've played in Newbridge 2 or 3 times against Kildare teams. They're very hard to beat there, and I would go for a Kildare win.
Yeah, absolutely. And yourself, Daniel, Clare against Clare?
Yeah, I think Kildare, the Newbridge factor is huge. I've played there a couple of times. Very, very hard place to play. Tight pitch, and Kildare seem to know how to use every blade of that grass out there, whereas other teams seem to play narrow down the middle. Now, in fairness to Clare, Collins is just an incredible manager. Like, he's done some job with them every year. They lose lads, and another fellow comes in and fits in and does his job. The only thing is, Cleary might get another couple of sidelines now. The pitch will be narrow in Newbridge, so those 2 points he kicked the last day were incredible. If we could see more of that, I wouldn't care who won. But I think Kildare, if they can build on last week and the Newbridge factor, I think they'll edge this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last game of the weekend in Division 2 brings Down versus Meath. Probably a very tight game ahead. And Daniel, what would be the thoughts ahead of that
one? Look, based on Meath's experience over the last couple of years and playing Leinster finals, being up in Division 2 a bit longer, I'd give them the benefit of the doubt. Be honest, I don't know much about both teams at the moment. Down have been, I suppose, building away quite slowly as well. So, to be honest, Meath will be looking at getting up into Division 1 again, and I'll probably give them the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's down to get the win this weekend, Kevin.
The amount of text messages I got, John, after this last 2 weeks for you about Down. Down people, Daniel, you beat them in an All-Ireland final, right? But these people are the most passionate people in the world about football. But they just haven't got it at the minute. They just haven't got it, unfortunately. The game obviously is in a neutral venue. I think it's in the athletic grounds this weekend because of Down's misdemeanors. So they haven't even got home advantage. As I said to you last weekend, I really feared for them in Division 2. They had a real bad experience down in Mayo. At one stage, I think it was 2-19, they had about 6 points down there. They rescued a wee bit towards the end. They haven't really been going well underage. James McCartan's been in with the Miners for about 5 years. There was a lot of expectation last year with the Miners, and Fermanagh beat them out of nowhere. So they haven't got a lot to build on. Yes, they went up a league, but I seriously think they're going to go back down a league. Me, very much similar to Kildare in terms of backing up with a win. Far too inconsistent over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Daniel's 100% right. They've been in Division 2 that wee bit longer. But they've been a steady Division 2 team now for about 3, 4 years because of inconsistency. They've had a win last weekend, dogfight. They came out, they were, 4 points down against Westmeath, come out with 14 minutes to go, come out on the right side of that. They've good momentum, get into this game. And, Andy McEntee will probably be geeing them up for this. I would say, Meath just getting over the line again. That'll be a second big win for them.
Yeah, an intriguing game, and one we're probably all looking forward to. And we can move on to Division 3, where you have Offaly and Limerick kickstarting the weekend. So a tight game again, Kevin.
Yeah, well, as I said to you before, Limerick are a team I've seen 3 or 4 times now over the last 2 or 3 years. They've been up in Belfast twice. Real big, strong, physical team. A lot of mixture between physically big, strong, athletic players with good skill as well. So, turned over a lot of people last weekend against Tipperary, but Daniel probably knows Limerick and Tipperary are very much on the same level on any given weekend. So, you know, bit of a surprise result for some. Limerick would probably just have the ambitions of staying in that league, as would Offaly have. Offaly had a good win going down there. So, you know, both are on bonus territory right now. The game's obviously in Tullamore, so Offaly would be looking at home advantage. Obviously, John Mahon's in there. Again, will have him very, very fit. Do you know what? I'm going to go for Limerick from back-to-back wins.
Perfect. And what about yourself, Daniel? Can John Mahon's men get a victory this weekend?
Yeah, I'd be thinking, do you know what? That's a huge win for Limerick last weekend. And they probably won't get the credit they deserve for it because it's a league game, but like I remember last year watching the semi-final in Munster, and Limerick should have won that game too. So they seem to be moving in the right direction. And like only I recall there was a free at the end to win it, 21-yard free that was for wide. And do you know what? I think they're going in the right direction, and I'd give Limerick the nod here.
Absolutely. And next game, we have Tipperary against Whitlow. Probably a must-win for Tipperary at this stage. Daniel, seeing as there's only 3 games, so what would be the thoughts ahead of that one? Yeah,
I think Tipperary just will have a bit too much for Whitlow. They'll have the kind of the team that has been there, you know, played in All-Ireland semi-finals, and I suppose their backs are against the wall now a small bit, and I'd expect them to win this game with a bit to spare.
Absolutely. And Kev, what about yourself?
Yeah, very similar. Wicklow would be very disappointed. Maybe Ockham's hard place to go, but the loss last weekend, 1-9 to 1-3 down at half time, so they didn't really give a good account of themselves. The other hand, we are all expecting a reaction from Tipperary after what happened. Everybody is. So I think that Wicklow have to go down there to Clonmel. So it'll be a difficult task for them, and I can't see anything other than a Tipperary win.
Absolutely. And an intriguing game here, Derry against Fermanagh, and can Fermanagh keep that winning run after beating ourselves last weekend? So an exciting game ahead, Kevin.
I may watch what I say, because I might have Ryan McManaman or someone around at the door, you know, ready to rattle me here. Yeah, look, Ricey pulled one out of the bag last week, and so did Fermanagh. You know, fair play to them. You know, upset the apple cart. For me, the 2 favourites this year going up out of that division were Cavan and Derry. So, look, they have to go to Owen Begg. Owen Begg's not an easy place to go to. As I say, Rory Gallagher, a guy I know very well, played club with him. Look, he's going to have them set up really, really well, Derry. They're going to have a good structure. He's into maybe year 2 of that project up there too. You know, they had a really good win down in Longford, and the big issue is the Conor Glass factor. As I said to you earlier on the week, every report I read was about how good Conor Glass was, how he ran the game, not only about what he contributed to the scoreboard as winning a primary ball, but, you know, how this kid, alongside 1 or 2 others, like Cian McFall around him, you know, Shane McGuigan, how these guys can, you know, they can turn the screw a wee bit to change Derry. And Derry's big aim is to get out of this league. Forget about the championship. Derry up to competitive in Division 2. So, you know what? Going up the Owen Begg with a Conor Glass factor, I'm going to go for Derry in this game.
Absolutely. And what about yourself, Daniel? Derry against Fermanagh?
Yeah, I think it'll be the game of the weekend. To be honest, so it'll be total football, no blanket defences, no men behind the ball, everyone 15 on 15, I'd say. I'd say, no, this is going to be tit for tat. No one really wanted to show in their hand just tight football, and no one wanted to win or lose this game by more than a point or 2. I think it's just going to be a really tight game of football. I'd probably give it to Derry. I'd agree with Kevin. I think Derry are looking at getting into Division 2. I think Gallagher's trying to build kind of a bit of momentum here, and he's looking at a kind of the future project of Derry football and getting it back to where it used to be. And I think if they want to have any ambitions for the year, they need to be winning this game at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last game of Division 3 is ourselves, Cavan, against Longford. So, Daniel, a must win for Cavan.
Yeah, look, I suppose similar to Tipperary, kind of, you know, big highs last year. and probably maybe a bit undercooked this year. And probably, look, this is the game now that they'll have to rebound. Look, so assuming how Longford played last weekend, they will rebound with this, probably comfortably as well. But still not the same. There's a bit of pressure on Cavan now, same way with Tipperary, just to make sure that they kind of right the wrongs of last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin, what about yourself? Cavan against Longford?
Yeah, local Derby, word is in the street that you've never seen as many ladders sold this weekend. Look over the top in Breffni Park, all the tight boyos down in Longford and Cavan wouldn't pay a dime into a match. So, look, again, very similar to Galway, very similar to Tipperary. We'll be looking at a massive reaction from Cavan this weekend. Again, Daniel mentioned Longford, the way that they went down to Derry last weekend doesn't bode well for them. So they having to go to Breffni, Cavan, needing a result. I fully expect Cavan to win this one handy enough.
Fingers crossed, and if they don't, there will be wigs on the green. Of course, guys, this podcast is sponsored by OrgaRetro.com. Check the website for all your retro gear needs and wants. And we will move on to Division 4. We have Wexford against Waterford. Daniel Goulding, what's the verdict ahead of that
one? Look, I suppose similar to Longford, Waterford under pressure last week, and Wexford's first game might be a bit rusty, but at the same time, you'd imagine them to have a bit too much for Waterford.
Yeah, absolutely. And yourself, Kevin, Wexford against Waterford?
Yeah, similar. Waterford just Carlo come down. Maybe it wasn't as close in Fahar as maybe I'd imagined. It's always a tight place to go. Some of us have played down there, Daniel, for a load of years down in Division 4, and it's not. It doesn't do your mental health well being down there a lot. So when you do get a defeat down there, I mean, more than any other division, as I said before, Division 4 is a tough division mentally. When you get a defeat, it's very, very hard to get back on the feet, especially a week later. They would have had expectations maybe to hold Carlo last weekend as tight as possible, but Carlo really blew them away, and having to go to Wexford now, I just see a Wexford win.
Yeah, absolutely. And Leitrim against Louth. Mickey Hart's Louth going up against Terry Highlands Leitrim. So, Kevin, what's the thoughts ahead of that one? And I suppose Mickey needs a win.
Well, I'm surprised Mickey didn't get off to a winning start last week, but we'll come to that. Look, I was quite disappointed in Leitrim last weekend because Terry Highland's been there 2 years. He went in. Okay, it's hard enough travelling up to Marketman's Park, but, it was a real whimper for them against Sligo. Sligo really untested, only had a couple of weeks with McEntee. So I was disappointed in them, given that they're one of the teams with a bit of continuity in manager in this division. Most other teams have changed their managers. So obviously Louth having to go there is going to be difficult for Louth to go there. But you know what? I was impressed in patches by Louth last weekend. They were in control most of the game against Antrim, most of the game. The one thing was that Antrim got 1 or 2 goal opportunities just at the right time in the game that really were sucker punches and scored late on. So, you know what? I'm going to go for Louth winning this.
Yeah, perfect. And what about yourself, Daniel? Leitrim against Louth?
Yeah, look, I think Mickey Hart's going to take a bit of time to get his stamp on Louth, but I suppose the manner that Leitrim lost last weekend, I'd still be thinking Louth could feel they can go there and get the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last game of the weekend is Kevin's beloved Antrim against Sligo. So, Kevin, what's the thoughts ahead of that one?
Oh, geez, I'm going to tip them this weekend, John. Look, like any team, they were in a dogfight last weekend and they came out of the dogfight. So the momentum getting into training Tuesday, Thursday would be good. Stephen O'Neill and obviously Ian McGinley are winners. They'll have good mentality in around them. They'll be talking to them this week about backing a good result up with a good result. They've Sligo coming up the road under McEntee, scored 218. Really, most impressive result in Division 4 last weekend was them. So, it's in Corrigan. It's a long way for Sligo to come up, if I'm honest with you. And I expect Antrim to win, which is quite unusual. But they do have 2 or 3 good scoring forwards, and they showed their class last weekend, the likes of Paddy Cunningham and Ryan Murray. So look, it'd be lovely to see them put back-to-back wins together and build a bit of momentum before they go into the championship against Armagh.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, well said, Kevin, for your beloved Antrim. And Daniel Gooley, Antrim v Sligo.
Yeah, look, I was, even last year's championship, I was impressed enough with Antrim. I think they ran Cavan close enough, if I'm not mistaken, for a good period of that game. Antrim are on a bit of a high between the hurling now and the football, and it's great to see. I think you can't understate the kind of momentum that you get from beating Mickey Hart team, and I think they'll carry that forward to this game as well. I think they're at home and they're probably getting a small bit battle hardened now, and they're getting a bit more serious about it. And I fancy them to take this game.
Oh, okay, absolutely. So we'll are all going for Antrim on that one. So just move on to some talking points, lads. Kerry's chances this weekend. So can David Clifford produce the goods this weekend? Do you feel, Kevin?
Well, this is the thing about Clifford. Daniel played a similar position to him. So he will know the psyche that maybe David's coming into the game thinking about, and what his goals maybe are coming in this week into that game. If I'm Dublin, on the other hand, we spoke to Conor Gormley the other night. I think he gave us a great insight into a defender. One of the Dublin guys wants to pick him up. He wants to mark a guy like David Clifford. So, it'll be interesting to see how he does. And it'll be also interesting to see how Dublin set up to counter him. I would fully expect my old college buddy down UCD, Mick Fitzsimons, to pick him up. Michael would never be, if you've caught Michael over your own 45 line, you'd be telling him, listen, get back into the corner. Your job is to sit in there. He's a great man marking corner back, not overly great with the ball skills, but he'll dispossess a man. He's tenacious, and he's the sort of guy that he'll be up for marking somebody like Clifford. So, could it be him? Could they bring back in Johnny Cooper, for example, somebody like that? It'll be just interesting to see the way the Dubs set up. But Kerry, or let's not just centre on David Clifford. Kerry are much more than David Clifford. Sean O'Shea can pull the strings when he wants. Dara Monaghan impressed me last weekend. Paddy Clifford stepped up to the mark. Is David Moran going to leave the inter-county scene as good as athlete as he is without really, that 2 or 3 All-Ireland medals that we expected when he first came on it? Paul Geeney's out in a new position. Has he found a new lease of life? There's so many questions about that Kerry forward line. David Clifford and myself is a sideshow, and if people want to worry about David Clifford, you're missing the bigger picture, because really Kerry are much bigger picture than David Clifford. But as I said to you, I'm not worried about David Clifford this weekend. What I'm worried about is the Kerry defence and how they deal with, the likes of the Conor Costellos and the Kieran Kilkennys in particular. And that will tell me where Kerry are at and what Peter Keane needs to concentrate on. More questions to be answered by Kerry than there is for Dublin for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about yourself, Daniel? Will David Clifford score a hat-trick against Dublin this weekend?
No, he won't score a hat-trick, I don't think. And I feel quite adequate now as well, talking about Michael Fitzsimons. I marked him in the semi-final in 2010, and he's still there. So, I'd echo everything Kevin says. Really, Fitzsimons is a super footballer, and the longevity is crazy. But getting back to Clifford, I think, look, like any forward, like if he's the marquee forward, but he's a product of what's going on beside him. If Kerry are playing like they did against Cork last year and leaving 3 men up, it can be a hard day for him. But if Kerry are going gung-ho at Dublin toe-to-toe, that's when Clifford will make hay, because, as Kevin said, like Kerry have 6 forwards that are all dangerous, and that will give Clifford the extra second he needs to get the scores that we know he can get. There's nothing worse than having to win every ball and do it all yourself if you're alone, if there's 2 inside and you've no support, because the defender knows what you're about then. Whereas what Clifford wants to be doing is buzzing around the square, coming on the loop, the next time make a diagonal run, pop the ball off, so then the next time he has an extra second look. And if Kerry play the way they can with the forwards they can, and how Kerry traditionally play football, then I think Clayford can make it at the weekend,
Yeah, let's hope so. And it's going to be an intriguing battle. And a must win for Galway. Obviously, massive pressure, as Kevin was alluding to, on Park Joyce to produce the goods. So Galway would really need to step up for this one, Daniel.
Yeah, they will absolutely. And I suppose it starts with their defence. And there is much point having marquee forwards up front if you can't get the ball out of your own defence, or if you're turning it over every 2 minutes and you're leaving loads of space at the back. So, I just thought, look, Galway down to Kerry for the first round of National League after a lockdown is probably, tough mentally anyway. But I just found them to be totally not at the races, not switched on at all. So, and of course, Kerry were the opposite. So if Galway's heads aren't right going into this game, I could see Roscommon doing not the same amount of scoring, but a similar job on Galway if they're not at the races. And it's very hard to change your system if you're an all-out football 15-on-15 team. It's very hard to go defensive all of a sudden. So I wouldn't say if they drop in behind the ball that will necessarily fix all the defensive problems straight away. So I think a lot for Parry Joyce to think about, and a lot of soul searching this week for them. Yeah,
and what about yourself, Kevin? Big pressure on Galway, supposed to deliver goods.
Yeah, well, Daniel said the words there. I think that's what everybody in the country's thinking, soul searching. Galway are proud people. Parry Joyce is a proud man, always been associated with winning, I suppose. They really took a battering last weekend, not only to their system and maybe their game style of play, but their mentality going forward. Now, that is the big issue. They've just come off the back of this. They've probably faced a bit of criticism, I do think that Porrick isn't picking the right team at the minute. As I said, Cian Malloy's a fantastic player. Gold played there maybe 4 or 5 All-Ireland Club 7 finals in a row against Corofin. Malloy, there are a couple of other Corofin boys that aren't involved. And you have to ask why. These guys are quality footballers. So I don't think he's got everything just right there at the minute. It's going to be very difficult for him to pick it up this weekend. And you know what? I fully expect Poacher to be in his face. Stephen will be quite confrontational down the line to him. And I fully expect Roscommon to come out in the first 5 or 10 minutes and start banging all around him. Physically, I expect them to put Galway in the back foot. So it is a huge test for them. And it's going to be interesting to see how Galway go this year, because if they lose this, for me, they're down from Division 1. Then they go into the Championship, and I think they face up to Roscommon again in the Championship. So, it could be a very short year for Park Joyce and Galway this year, the way things are panning out at the minute.
Yeah, and after all the hype of last year, I suppose, Daniel, there is big pressure, as Kevin was saying, on Park Joyce.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the other thing about Roscommon is they have a settled team, they have a settled game plan, they know what they're about. I suppose if you watch Roscommon over the last couple of years, they play the same way. They're well in tune with each other. I don't think Galway are there at the moment. Even against Mayo last year in the kind of final when the crunch came on, I thought they were bar Shane Walsh kind of pulling a rabbit out of a hat. I thought they were kind of lost. And it's a huge game. I suppose they can react in either one of two ways. They'll either come out and play with total abandon, and you could see maybe the plan that Parry Joyce is trying to put in place work. But as I said, if they're not focused and if there's any uncertainty about what they're about, they could be in for a long few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose lastly on it, just to get your take on Cork football, Daniel, at the minute, and everyone is always going on about the population, and obviously sports director on board this year. So Cork probably really do need to start delivering the goods, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I suppose the disappointment around the county last year after beating Kerry, and not performing against Tipperary, I suppose was very disappointing. All credit to Tipperary that they stood up and they kicked the great scores, and the two lads up front were brilliant on the day. But Cork, even looking at that game, didn't play within 60% of their capacity. And like I think this Laois game is a huge game. Like it's could define their season. Like getting the chance of being relegated to Division 3 again for a very young team, like can cause a lot of damage. And Ronan McCarthy's under pressure also. Like it's about time now that like Cork really kind of knuckle down. I think that this lack of confidence has to just be overcome, and they need to get a bit of grit and steel into their play and just be more certain of what they're about. And because there is lots of good footballers there. No, a lot of them are young. A lot of the older lads have had a lot of disappointment over the last few years and haven't had a lot of success. So it is hard for them. Like, and I think it's great to say that Cork have won 20 All-Irelands and minor All-Irelands, but all those young lads are still young, and probably haven't had a lot of experience at senior intercounty football. So look, this is a critical game for Cork's development. They need to win this game, and I think they just need to show, that kind of bit of composure and that bit of steel that, the team they want to be, that they're missing at the moment. And like I always look at Ian Maguire. If you see Ian Maguire, he leaves it all on the pitch every single day, and it's up to the rest of the lads to get up to his level, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose when you're kind of looking on at Kerry in the top divisions and getting kind of the All-Ireland finals and everything that goes with it, and we obviously seen great battles between Cork and Kerry in the early noughties. Daniel, is it kind of disappointing to see where Cork football's at compared to Kerry, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. And look, it's a combination of things. It's I suppose Cork have traditionally yo-yoed between great teams and struggling, and it's kind of cyclical, and it seems to be going that way again. I suppose you could always point back to 2012, 2013 when, look, you had the nucleus of a very successful team that all finished up at the same time. And a lot of young new lads came in and just, I suppose, never won anything or never got the success that kind of you could build on from there. And it's got just, unfortunately, progressively kind of harder to get that success back, with Kerry kind of motoring. Like last year's win was huge, but as much as Cork kind of battled and won that game, Kerry played into Cork's hands. So, like realistically, for Cork to compete this year, they'd want to be beating Laois, which I think they can do. They'd want to go and beat Clare then on top of it, and like Limerick, or I presume Limerick will be Waterford. That's not going to be an easy game either. So, to be fair, if Cork can come through those three games, it'll be battle hard and going into the Kerry game, but. Look, I think it's time for this Cork team to step up, and I suppose you'd like to see a couple of the younger lads make a name for themselves, the Cottle O'Mahonys and Colm O'Callaghan's, and then I think the likes of Rory Dean and Brian Hurley and the lads that have been there have to lead by example and really set the tempo for what they're about for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and Kevin, even to kind of hear your perspective on it, and obviously the great battles Cork and Kerry would have had in the early noughties, as I was alluding to, it's probably disappointing to see the standard and where it's at the minute, Kevin.
Yeah, it's easy for me to criticise looking down from I suppose the northeast of the island, but I mean, when we look at Cork, many a Sigerson weekend spent many time talking to great passionate people like Billy Morgan, heart of Cork football, passionate men, you look at what Conor Cunningham brought onto the team that Daniel had, the lads that Daniel played with, the Graham Cantys, the real warriors, left it out on the pitch for Cork all the time. I think the one thing that I would like to ask Daniel, I suppose very much similar to my own county, but obviously they have a lot more resources and money and players. There's this issue going on. I read the Irish Examiner quite often about, there's this committee underwriting Cork football now and the structures and stuff like that. Is that going to get anywhere, Daniel, or is it going to, how long would you want to see that developing within the next 3 to 5 years? Or
yeah, like there is a huge look. The club championships have been restructured as well, which look, it'll be a help. You're going to have you've 12 teams in every grade. It's going to be more competitive. There's a huge amount of work being put in at Rebel Oak, underage development squads. Like some age groups having 100, 200 kids out for 6 months of the year being trained by ex-intercounty players. So there's a huge amount of work being done. And I think you have seen some success already from that at minor and 20 level, but like as we know, like senior intercounty level is a totally different ball game, and like you see great lads that have played a minor now and under 20 with Cork in the last couple of years and finding it hard to adjust to intercounty level at senior level because the team is going through a bad patch. So like I think there's too much churn in the Cork teams at the moment. It's very rare you see a settled Cork team going out with the last number of years. And like in my own mind, that must lead to a bit of, fellas wondering about their position or uncertain of their role. So like what I'd like to see over the next couple of weeks is Cork are going to have 3 games, is whatever you think your team is for championship, it needs to be as close to that as possible, and give those players as much time as possible to get used to the game plan that they're trying to implement. And I suppose if you can get a couple of these young lads that are coming through the system in playing at intercounty level and give them a proper shot at it, 3-4 games to get up to speed, at least you know then if they're good enough. And look, this is the opportunity. There's a lot of young lads in that panel now, and I think you have to stick it out with them, hopefully get a result against Laois, let the lads build on that and go again. And as I said, the other thing, I think a bit more creativity at centre forward and is badly needed there too. I think Cork do have good forwards, but they never seem to find themselves around the D shooting. They're always shooting under pressure, and I think that comes down to slow build-up play. So look, the work isn't being done at underage, but that doesn't translate necessarily to playing well at the top level straight away.
No, it's an interesting project to look at, because obviously senior wise they've only 7 All-Irelands. They have a great pick. As you say, minors doesn't always concede into the seniors and whatever else. But the one other big thing, Daniel, I don't know if you have a view on this, is Cork people always try to compare with Kerry, and yes, that was the old Munster Championship. But it's actually, no matter which one of them two win out most years, it's Cork's inconsistency nearly in the back door in the last 4 or 5 years that's really shocked me. They've maybe gone up the country to a Kildare or an Offaly, and it just hasn't worked out for them,
Yeah, and again, my own view on that is, again, it comes down to not having a settled team. And I suppose it's kind of a vicious circle. You have a good win, and next thing, after 20-25 minutes of the next round, you're under savage pressure and the team has changed again. And it's followed a couple of, like, I think Rowan's first year, there was huge disappointments to Kerry and Tyrone. And like at that point, then you're totally scratching your head, saying you're after taking 2 huge beatings. You're after saying, what in the name of God is my team now? And then you spend the next championship trying to get a settled team, and you have a disappointing result again, and you're back to square one. So, as I said, look, I think getting a settled team where your spine down the middle of the pitch is kind of known, and they're your leaders, and build around that. And so when every lad goes into his position, he knows, right, I'll get a fair shot here. I've this 50-60 minutes to do my job and complete the role that I understand, as opposed to looking over your shoulder and waiting for the next set to try and do it. And look, like intercounty football isn't about, minding fellas' heads and making sure they feel wanted, but at the same time, confidence has a lot to do with it. And it's very hard when the team isn't settled to have confidence in the job you're supposed to do.
Yeah, super. And I suppose to wrap it up, lads, who would be the player to watch this weekend from your perspective, Kevin?
I suppose that's easy. One game for one game it'll be everybody. It will be Cormac Costello against David Clifford. But the one player I'm really interested in watching this weekend, because I just don't know where he's fitting in at the minute, and this is going to be quite controversial to people, Peter Hart. Reading a few things in and out of the week, talking to 2 people from Tyrone, a lot of question marks over where Peter Hart's going to play, if he is going to play. And he's such a big player for Tyrone. If Tyrone want to compete in the top 4, they're going to need him, in my opinion. The problem is, does he have a future under these 2 guys, and where is that future? So, going to be interesting to see him against Armagh for me from a personal level.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a player Peter Hart has been over the years. And what about yourself, Daniel? Who would be the player to look out for this weekend?
I suppose, I think from a Cork perspective, I'd like to see Sean Potter, build on last week's performance. I suppose he's been cursed with injuries over the last number of years, and it was good to see him get 60 minutes into his legs last week. And I think he can be a real driving force for what Cork were about. And from I suppose a personal point of view, I'd like to see him kind of set the tempo against Cork or against Laois, and like really show the intent of what Cork are about. I think Donaghy for Tyrone as well. I'd like to see him play again. I saw the highlights of the scores the last day, and he looks like a super footballer that I knew nothing about a year ago. So, like to see him now again as kind of a huge derby game, be do or die hard battle, and like to see can he kind of reproduce the goods again. And I suppose the last thing for me is to see can Dublin's shoot 85% efficiency again. I think they're nearly crazy. They're nearly a computer game at this stage. Like you've young lads coming into the team, and they do the exact same thing as the lads that have been there for 10 years are doing it. So it's just from a neutral point of view, I'd love to see Kerry go at Dublin just to see a right humdinger of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And the very last thing on it, how many red cards will be in the Armagh Tyrone game, Kevin McCarthy?
I'll say none, because people will be coming looking at me with pitchforks up right there, The only thing, I think, Cian, there was a famous quote, a man on Team of the Century, I'll not reveal his name, he once said in a Queen's dressing room, I think McGeady, his final words to the Armagh team before going out against Tyrone will be, don't dare let these bastards come into our orchard and steal our apples.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Guys, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is sponsored by OrgaRetro.com. Check the website for all your retro gear needs and wants. Round 2, ding ding. Cannot wait for the action to start this weekend. Boys, thanks a million.
Cheers.
Take care.
See you later.
Thanks. Take care.